Okay, we are in verse 37 of Genesis. The previous chapter 36 was one of those chapters that was hard to get through. It was basically the family line of Esau. That was Jacob's brother. And if we remember, Joseph was one of Jacob's sons. He was actually Jacob's favorite son. He was born to Rachel, who was barren for a very long time, and then finally she was able to give Jacob some children. So here we go. Let's find out what's going on in Jacob's family right now. So verse 37. Chapter 37. Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. So he's a tattletale. He's a snitch. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. So he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. I can see that. So he's a tattletale, and he's getting special stuff from his dad. Okay, now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, "Please hear this dream, which I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. Indeed, your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaves." Okay, stop for a second. He might have had this dream, and this dream actually is prophetic, and we'll see later on what happens. But you're one of the youngest brothers, okay? And, he's 17, so he's not even fully grown yet. You're a snitch. Dad gives you special stuff, and you're telling us that we're going to serve you? You can see how it wouldn't go over real well, okay? And his brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed rule over us? Or shall you indeed have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and his words. So he was being a little boastful. Maybe he should have told somebody else, not his brothers. But he did tell his brothers. And, God will work it out. So then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers and said, "Look, I dreamed another dream. And this time the sun and the moon and even the stars bowed down to me." So he told it to his father and his brothers. And his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you've dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come and bow down to the earth before you?" And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So, when we're reading here, look, there's different ways to say this. His father said, what is this dream that you've dreamed?" So his father could be saying, "What is this dream you dreamed? Like, what are you saying? I need to know more. That's really interesting." And his brothers could be saying, "What is this dream you're dreaming? You are so wrong," Different perspectives. And I think that's what happened right here is they both asked the same question, even though Jacob was the one that said it. He's like, I think Jacob, he's older, he's wiser. And we'll see as things come to pass that it was good that he kept the matter in mind. Okay? So that's kind of a significant thing there. Jacob did listen to his son Joseph. And sometimes we need to listen to our children too. When I can't say this for everybody, but when I was growing up, children in my household were considered stupid. We didn't know anything. Of course, we didn't always have experience that an older person has. And this is kind of evident here with the brothers, okay? They don't have the experience as far as wisdom, as far as understanding how the Lord works, different things. They don't have that experience that Jacob had. Jacob was an old man by now. But sometimes children do get a word of wisdom, or they know something, especially nowadays. Like, I'll give you a really good example. I can kind of work computers and things like that. I am definitely not a computer whiz or a techie or anything like that. But my children definitely understand it better than I do. They grew up with it. I was an adult when it came to pass. And so a lot of times, especially when it was very, very new, I would go to my kids and ask them questions, because they knew more about it. It came to them much more naturally than it did to me. So that's what I'm saying, is like sometimes young people do have a word of wisdom, or do have some sort of knowledge. And Joseph was getting dreams. So the Lord was definitely speaking to him. But I think in his dreams, or in his youth, he was still a young man. He was only 17. He may not have had the wisdom on how to deliver these messages with some sort of grace or tact. And then on the other hand, like, we're dealing with all these different personalities and different levels of maturity, from really, Benjamin was even younger than Joseph, but all the way up to Jacob, who is an old man and has seen a few things. Okay, but anyway, he told that dream to his brothers, and they're a little miffed. Actually, they're very miffed. Okay, then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers feeding the flocks in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." So he said to him, "Here I am." And he said to him, "Please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me." So he sent him out to the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. Now a certain man found him, and there he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, saying, "What are you seeking?" So he said, "I'm seeking my brothers. Please tell me where they are feeding their flocks." And the man said, "They have departed from here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. And when he saw them afar off, and when they saw him afar off, even before he came near, they conspired against him to kill him. And then they said to one another, "Look, the dreamer's coming. Come therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit, and we shall say, 'Some wild beast has devoured him.' We shall see what will become of his dreams." But Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, "Let us not kill him." And Reuben said to him, "Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him, that he might deliver him out to their hands and bring him back to his father." So what's happening here is all the brothers are so mad they want to kill Joseph, right? And they want to throw him in a pit and tell a lie to their father and say, a beast did it, we found him. But Reuben has some common sense, at least, and he's saying, "No, don't do that. Let's just throw him in the pit. Let's don't hurt him." But he wants to come back later and get Joseph out and rescue him. Okay, so Reuben's got a little bit of sense going on. So it came to pass, when Joseph came to his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the tunic of many colors that was on him, the gift from Joseph, that represented a little bit of favoritism, okay, right? And they took him and they cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. So this still was not a good place to be, okay? He could have died in there anyway. And they sat down to eat a meal, and then they lifted their eyes and looked, and there was a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices, balm, and myrrh, and on their way to carry them down to Egypt. So Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is there?" Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh." And his brothers listened. The Midianite traders passed by, so their brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. Then Reuben returned to the pit, and indeed Joseph wasn't in the pit, and he tore his clothes, and he returned to his brothers and said, "The lad is there no more. Where shall I go?" And they looked took Joseph's tunic. They took Joseph's tunic and they killed a kid of the goats and dipped the tunic in the blood. And then they sent the tunic of many colors and they brought it to their father and said, "We found this. Do you know whether it is your son's tunic or not?" So I guess Reuben let his brothers in. He went to go get Joseph out and is like, "He's gone. I was going to take him back to, and then maybe they realized how foolish they really, really were, that now they're going to be in hot water too. So they all took a goat, they killed it, they put the blood on it, and they took the tunic back to Joseph, and they're going, "Dad, we found this. Is this Joseph's tunic, the one that you gave to him?" And he recognized it and said, "This is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Without doubt, Joseph is torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his waist, and mourned for his son for many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted, and he said, "For I shall go down to the grave to my son in mourning." Thus his father wept for him. Now the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and a captain of the guard. So Joseph obviously didn't die. They took him to Egypt, where they were going to do business anyway, and they sold him to Potiphar, who was a wealthy man in Egypt. So Joseph is alive.